If you are new here, welcome to the Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first rodeo, thanks for sticking around. So June is done, and I did not get as much reading as I wanted to achieve. There was some stuff that came up book-wise that kind of threw me, but was also, an awesome invitation. And then yeah, there were just trips and stuff to get done, and kids were out of school, and it was a lot busier this month than I thought it was going to be. So let's go ahead and see what I did get done. First up, I ended up reading Lord of the Fading Lands by C.L. Wilson. This is the first book in the Terran Soul series. This is basically about kind of a land that's been ravaged by war, and it's kind of hundreds of years later, there's still kind of, animosities towards one another brewing. And you have like the Fey lands where there are the Fey, and then you have kind of the human lands, and there's these warlocks, and to some the warlocks are good, and to some the warlocks are bad. The Fey think that these warlocks or wizards are bad. They are using kind of the darker side of magic. And you basically have the Lord of the Fading Lands, or the Fading Lands, which is the Fey Kingdom. And this is Rain, and Rain has the ability to actually turn into a Terran. And a Terran, for lack of a better term, is like a giant cat with wings. Like, that's what it is. So he has been ruling the kingdom. Basically, there's not a lot of female Terran left in his kingdom as far as the cats, and the Fae kind of live because of the cats and vice versa. And with this, the Terran passing away, there isn't this huge population, and they're basically dying out. So there's a lot of kind of stress there, and Rain feels the mate bond pull, which he didn't think was possible because Terran kings or Terran leaders, lords, don't usually get a mate bond. It's something they give up as far as like their leadership. And he feels the pull to Elisetta, who is a human girl who is kind of raised by a wood carver, and she's being thrust into possible marriage with somebody she doesn't want to be with. When the Fae Parade comes, and lo and behold, Rain sees her, and the bond sinks into place, and now he kind of has to prove to her that they are destined to be, all while they try to navigate the court system amongst this backdrop of a possible impending war and this kind of, I don't want to say espionage, but like this secret plan by like these wizard warlocks for the demise of the Fae. So it was really interesting. I ended up giving it 3 stars just because it was good. The world was very interesting, and you can picture it. I didn't feel a pull to the characters. I felt more of a pull to like the band of protectors that Rain set for Elisetta, the bodyguards, for her, than I did for the main 2 characters. The storyline was feeling very slow to me because most of it is him trying to figure out his own feelings towards this mate bond. And it just kind of felt like it dragged on a little bit. I just needed a little bit of something going on. Like, even if it was just dialogue between them, like witty banter, something. It just felt a little slow. But I will continue with the series because it did pick up towards the end. Not enough to really change my rating, but enough to where I wonder if the action and the pace of it will change in the books coming up. So this book I ended up reading for my Magical Readathon, the spring equinox classes. I didn't get all my classes done, so I wanted to get them done before the summer classes in August. And so this was for my male character of a Beastmaster for his elemental studies, which was to read a book with a source of light on the cover. And as you can see, there's kind of this ember of flame burning. So we went ahead and did that one for that one. So now I did complete that course. So next up was a book that kind of took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting to receive it. I found out a little late in the game in June that I had been invited to be part of the ARC team for Elliot Rose. I had read her Vengeful Gods back in I think like February or March as part of her art team, and I really, really loved that story. It was a lot darker than I thought it was going to be, but I really did enjoy it. And this one was kind of another another direction. This was a Western kind of cowboy romance, contemporary, and I wanted to give it a shot because I liked her writing. I liked the relationships that she built in Vengeful Gods. So despite the fact that I'm not usually into Western romances, I picked it up, and that was Chasing the Wild by Elliot Rose. It came out later in June, so I knew I had a very shrunken window to kind of get it done. So I'm not going to go into too much detail with it because I did do a whole other video reviewing it. So if you want to check that out, I will leave a link for it down below. But you basically had I think it was 17-year age gap romance between, I think it was Layla, and she's kind of like going on her vet studies, and you had Colt, who was about, I think, like early 40s, and he runs a ranch up at in Devil's Peak. I think it's Devil's Peak Ranch is actually the name of the place. And Layla was dating Colt's son. It didn't turn out that well. It was actually an abomination of a relationship. And when stuff happens and she ends up there to kind of end things or give him back his stuff type situation, she runs into Colt on a few different occasions, one of them resulting in her getting snowed in with him and being offered a job by him. And of course, tensions kind of come to a fold. There's the age gap romance, and it goes from there. I ended up giving this story 3 stars as well. I didn't like it as much as I liked Vengeful Gods. Part of it was the cowboy romance is just not my thing. I can see the appeal of it, but as much as I saw all the kind of fandom sparking for Colt, I wasn't really feeling it. And it kind of also lacked the relationship dynamics that I had seen in Vengeful Gods. I wanted something a little bit more to pull me into their relationship, to make me root for them and cheer them on, and the obstacles that they kind of faced as a couple weren't as like high price or high cost as some of the other romance books that I have read. So I did end up giving that one 3 stars, but I did get it done in time. I think I posted my video like a day before the book actually came out. But I do recommend it if you are into like cowboy romances, if that's your thing. Age gap is fine with it. I think there was a trigger for talked about an attempted sexual assault, which was probably the bigger trigger in that book. So it's referenced, it's very light, it's not as kind of dark and taboo as her other book. So I would recommend it if that's kind of your thing. It did recently come out. It is getting rave reviews, even though my review was more on the medium side. It was still a good, decent read. It was probably more of my preferable ones for a Western romance. But I was able to get that done and finished. So next up, I read The Librarian and the Janitor by Victoria Silk. This was actually an audiobook. I don't do audiobooks that much because I usually have my kids around me, so I can't really listen in when I'm supposed to be listening to them. And they're usually in the car with me, so I can't really listen to them there. But I did get a chance to listen to this one. It's a very short audiobook. I think it's only like a half an hour long. And it is a romance between a librarian and the janitor who works at the library. And this, I'm trying not to laugh too much because this kind of reinforces why I don't particularly do romance audiobooks. Or even, spicy novels as audiobooks. Like, I get the memes that I've seen out there on like Instagram where like women are listening to it and the kids get in the car and it's in like one of those scenes. That part really didn't bother me that much. It made me laugh because it's like, you know, if somebody does, it's the idea of being caught listening to something like that and the awkwardness that it would be that makes me laugh. But that wasn't a big deal for me. it reaffirmed that I'm not really an audiobook person when it comes to romance or spicy novels, because one, I this was narrated completely by one female, and she would try to do the whole like lower the voice, talk deeper to do the man's part, and it just wasn't working. And just I think that if you're going to do a romance audiobook, especially a spicy one, you need to have a female and a male narrator to balance it out, because when she's trying to do both parts and it's a spicy scene and some of the lines coming out of the mouth, it made it more laughable than like spicy. There was also the part that this was very quick, so it felt like you were watching a snippet in some sort of naughty film versus like reading a book, because it's just like 2 or 3 scenes mashed together, and it was very, very quickly done. There was actually a line or two that the male character repeated in different scenes, which, because it's such a short book, you pick up on what the similarities are. So when you've heard this a few times, you're like, is this all he's got? Is this all he's gonna say? So that kind of felt a little repetitive. And it was just kind of like quirky. I think that it might have been a little bit better or gotten a little bit higher rating had I read it versus listened to it. But I had it on the audiobook, so we did it. I ended up giving it 2 stars because it was what it was, but it was just kind of done not the greatest. It wasn't absolutely horrible. It was definitely like, if you're looking for something more along the lines of like a rom-com with spice, this was kind of it, even though the plot is like nothing comedy, really. It just came off that way, and that was just, it was what it was. But I ended up reading this one for the Magical Readathon, the year in Aurelium. I was backed up in that as well, and this was for the May challenge, which was to get or extra credit in restoration, and to do that you need to read a book with multiple R's, and so librarian and janitor had some R's in there. So we went ahead and did that and finished that out. Like I said, 2 stars. If you're looking for a very quick, funny, spicy book, have at it. So next up, I still had a class that I needed to get done for the Spring Equinox Magical Readathon classes. And that, I believe, was either my male or female's alchemy class. I mean, I know I did 1 book for it. I needed to read 2, and I still had 1 left over. And for alchemy was to read something with a circle on the cover. And originally I had picked out A Game of Malice and Greed, but as the month was coming to an end, and this is a very chunky book, and I knew I needed to get it done, I ended up switching it out for God Killer by Hannah Canner. Of course, because the moon is a circle in the background. So it did fit the prompt. And I'm glad I made the switch, because I've been wanting to read this one for a while. This one is basically this kingdom of Midrin, and it's a multi-POV story between different people who had lived among the time of gods, and the gods are formed on human emotions, human fears, human praise, human prayer, and offerings. And the gods form from this and gain power from it. And so you have in the beginning gods existing, and then it like flash forwards to like 30 years later or something, some time frame later, and most of the gods have been killed off. There was this great battle, this great war. There is a king now in place who kind of outlaws god worship. So you have that going on, and you have 4 main characters. It's told from the point of view of 4 different people. And you have the first one, which is Kissin, and she is a god killer. She really gives off, like, this book was compared to Witcher, and I definitely got that kind of feeling in here. It is a very much darker world. Kissin is very much like Geralt in demeanor, and she is a god killer, kind of like he is a witcher, and they're very similar. So it's her kind of story as she comes across this young girl. Let me see if I can find her name. Yes, the young girl's name is Inara, and Inara has a little bit of a problem because she has this tiny little god of white lies named Skediseth, I think is how you pronounce it, but they call him Skedi for short. And he is attached to her. And they've tried to find his shrine. They've tried to find what he is attached to because most gods are attached to a shrine of sorts. He is attached to her somehow. And they're trying to sever that bond so that they don't have to be kind of in hiding. And they go to Kissen hoping that she'll be able to help them. And so they get kind of wrapped up in the story where they end up having to go back to the land or the city that was the site of the great battle with the gods and see if there are any gods in existence, because only an old god that has survived will be able to help them. And along this journey, they meet up with a group of kind of pilgrims that are secretly going to these lands to ask for various things. And among them is Elogast, or Elo as he comes to be called. And Elo he was the best friend, right-hand man of the king that now rules. He was the friend of his when he was kind of the prince that was never thought to take the throne and only did so because of what happened during the war. And so he kind of fought alongside him. He has kind of retired from the night world, but he is called in by his best friend, the king, on a secret mission to help him. So he has to go to the land of the gods himself. And so it's kind of their backstories, them getting familiar with each other, and then finding out what is really going on in their kingdom, and all is not what it seems, and how they just kind of form this kind of found family bond. I actually really liked this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think the only reason it was 5 stars is that for a lot of it, it was kind of the journey there, and it was a very quiet journey. People kind of left alone to deal with each other, but not really kind of figuring like those things out. Lots of secrets being kept, lots of, things being done. But the backstories given to each character were really, really great. You're rooting for them, and their little band. You want them to stay together. You kind of like the little god Skedi. And what I find is interesting is you get the human side of why they don't want to be around gods, and kind of what negatives that brought. But then on Skedi's side, you see how he doesn't really have control over, being a god. He was just into being. He can't remember a lot of things from his past because he was a reincarnated god. And he is just kind of sweet and cute and innocent, and he wants to protect the girl. He does care for the girl. And, but at the same time, you start to see how with people telling little lies or things and offering and how, kind of addicting it could be for a god, and how you could see that addiction could go bad. And so you kind of see these different views and these different reasons and beliefs and everything from all these different characters. But it picked up a little bit too late, but when it did pick up, oh my gosh. So I'm leaving it at 4 star, even though it's probably more about a 4.5, but I don't do like half star ratings or whatever. I only do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is going to take the 4 star, but I will be finishing it. I am going to have to go and pick up the sequel because I really did enjoy it. And yes, very much Witcher vibes. So if you are a Witcher fan, a found family fan, kind of gods and wars and like this darker kind of world, hidden agendas, then this is going to be the book for you. The good news is this is actually a book for the Reddit Fantasy Bingo Challenge for me. This was for the Eldritch Creatures prompt, which is basically like some sort of supernatural creature, whether it be a god or some type of alien creature or whatever. And in this one, we have a whole bunch of varieties of different types of gods. So I'm going to go ahead and use it for that. I've seen people being able to use it. It was listed on a book list for Eldritch Creature characters. So we're going to use it. But like I said, 4 stars. My with reading this, my spring classes for Magical Readathon are done, and both my characters have advanced to summer, which is going to be this whole other challenge. But you know, that's in August. So after that, I ended up picking one of our challenge accepted jar picks, and that was The Leprechaun's Mate by Elliot Asen. This was also a very short story. This is basically about a man who is half leprechaun, half human, and he lives usually in the States, but he is in Ireland right now helping out his dad. And he bumps into this girl who is just kind of needing to get away from it all. Her parents are going through a divorce, and she's older. She understands it's for the best, but she just doesn't want to be around the drama while it's all unfolding. So she comes out and works, you know, does some telework in Ireland. And while she's there, she bumps into the leprechaun, or the half leprechaun guy, and sparks fly. He recognizes her as her mate, and as his mate, I should say. And it just went by in a blur. Like, it went by in a blur. I ended up giving this one 2 stars as well because of that. Like, it just felt very, you know, I almost, I think I put on my review in Goodreads that if this author decides to kind of take the short story back and make it into an actual novella or a novel and give a little bit more background and a little bit more plot to it, I would actually pick it up because it was a good short story. But because it was so short, it felt more like you were reading someone's submission for like their English class than an actual story, but a really well done paper for what it was. It just was over so quickly. I couldn't really formulate much of an opinion on it. It had some cuteness to it. The spice was very like glossed over very quick. So I can't really even formulate much on that. Wanted it to be a little bit longer, so I could. So because of that, I didn't give it the highest rating, just because it was so short and so quick. It did have some funny little moments to it. I just would have liked a little bit more from it. So, but I did finish that one. So that was one challenge accepted pick over and done with. And for the last book that we ended up reading was our Cocky Hero Book Club pick, and that was Mr. Moneybags by Penelope Ward and V. Keelan. This is the last book, as far as I know, in the Cocky Hero Club series that they write together. There might be one that sneaks up on us later on, but this was like the kind of core for this club or series. And I am happy to report that we are back up to 5 stars for this book. This book, I loved it. I loved it. I think I had gone before and said either, was it Cocky Player and Stuck Up Suit were like my 2 favorites that I had read so far. This one fits in with them. And what I loved so much is in this, the male character Dax is watching YouTube episodes and he comes across Chance's YouTube videos from Cocky Bastard, and I was just loving it because Chance seems to make an appearance in a few of these books, and he's one of my like top, you know, book boyfriends because I just loved him in that book. However, Dax is now in there and he might have beat out Chance. Not gonna lie, I mean, I'll keep Chance around, but he's just kind of shifted a little lower. Basically what you have is the story of Dax and Bianca, where Bianca she used to be like a stock trader and now she is a journalist, and she wants to interview Dax because he is like this super rich, like billionaire type, very, you know, reclusive, doesn't come out into the media world, just kind of wants to do his thing, and she wants to know what's going on. So she's got the scoop to be able to present him to the world, so to speak, and get the kind of details on him and who he is. Nobody's ever seen him really before because pictures don't get taken of him. So she is in an elevator on her way to go and interview him. The elevator gets stuck. She realizes she is not alone in the elevator. There's a guy in there and the lights are out. They're talking, very, very funny, spicy little jokes going back and forth. I loved it. When the lights go on, she sees him. He's in like gym gear, and she's like, oh my God, he's gorgeous. And this is none other than Dax. Although throughout their conversation, Dax finds out that Bianca thinks that Dax is going to be, you know, this a-hole type character that, you know, all billionaires seem to be, and he's going to be a jerk, and he's not going to know of the real world, you know, playboy type, whatever. So in the spur of moment, Dax lies to her and says that he is a bike messenger. And so he wants to date her under the name of Jay. That's the persona that he comes. And he kind of goes through extremes to become this character for her. It's really cute. She finds out pretty quickly on who he really is. That kind of comes in about like 50% of the book. And so then it kind of becomes like a second chance romance. Because he's trying to prove, you know, you can trust me. She has a bad history with people who don't tell the truth in her past. And so now she doesn't know if she can trust him. So that's kind of going on. And then you get the big blow up that I will not reveal. I kind of knew when it happened what was going to be the outcome of it. But you do get this kind of roller coaster of emotions. I didn't get brought to tears or anything, but it was more of like a very sweet romantic gesture or moment mixed with a you've got to be kidding me moment to a laughing my butt off moment, and this kind of just continuous roller coaster of emotions that way. But Dax is, once again, he's very similar to Chance from Cocky Player or Cocky Bastard, in the sense of the way, how far he's willing to go to prove himself to this girl, and the cute sweet sides that come out, as well as like the funny flirtatious little comments that he says. So I really just loved Dax, loved him. But it was good. Like, I liked the fact that the emotional kind of trauma and the high-end stakes that were the challenges for the romance weren't played at to be really extreme, emotional, like kind of gut-wrenching scenes. You glossed over it. You're kind of like, oh my God, if this really happens, this is kind of interesting and weird. But the way in which it was handled is kind of handled with humor. And I found that very interesting. And I liked that because it's an interesting spin on a romance story that you don't really hear at all, especially in a spicy book. Because it does hint at some family bond dynamics. We'll just leave it at that. But I did, like I said, I gave this 5 stars. So we are going to be continuing it. But now with the Cocky Hero Club, it's going to be like different authors. So we are leaving Penelope and V behind and seeing what all these other authors who get the Cocky Hero Club stamp of approval, literally on the cover of the books, what they have to deal with. Or what they have to dish out, I mean. So with that, that is kind of what I read for the month of June. Didn't get to touch the Circle of Friends book, which was the other challenge accepted pick. So that will be moved up. And I sadly did not get to go back to the World of the Shadowhunters, which is what you guys suggested. So I'm going to try to postpone that idea and see if I can do it in a month where I'm not really participating in anything, and try to tackle those again and bring your guys' wishes back out for that. Because obviously in July we have a bit going on. It is a very reading heavy month. However, we have family visiting and the kids are still out of school, so I'm hoping I will be able to get through what I need to get through. But we'll see. We shall see. But other than that, I hope your summer is off to good. I mean, well, now it's the middle of summer, for me at least. So I hope that your summer is going well, that you are staying hydrated out there in the heat, and just taking care of yourself and having some great summer reads. If you are, let me know what you're reading down in the comments below. I love to hear what you guys are reading. Let me know how good it is and if I need to pick that up, because obviously there is no book buying ban for me. I just need good reads and you know, fun times ahead. So with that, be well, stay hydrated once again, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.